Hi guys, long time, no chat. How's it going? What's going on? What's the tea? What's happening? What's the sitch? All right, some might say that this video is my Super Bowl. Okay, that this video is just the video that I've been wanting to make for years, okay? Because if you guys don't know, I am a pop culture commentary channel. Hi, how are you? I come over here and I chit chat and I gab away about reality TV shows and how much I love them so much, plus other pop culture things. But let me tell you right now, I had this ongoing theory, and I've had this ongoing theory for a very long time now, that there are 3 key things that you need to have in order to have the perfect Real Housewives franchise. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to share this. I'm going to chit chat and share this. Why? Because some might say that I'm a little bit of an encyclopedia. And because I, in my opinion, have picked the best franchise on the planet of reality television to be in love with and to know the most about, which is Vanderpump Rules, I figure we can just add the math from Vanderpump Rules over to Real Housewives. And if you can do that, I think we can get an A+, okay, at this point. Because right now, the best Real Housewives franchise on the market at this point, I think we can all agree right now, currently in their current season, is Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And they have all 3 of these elements. And so that's why I think that they are so successful and why this continues to get brought up in my brain. I'm like, okay, if Vanderpump Rules can do these 3 things and Real Housewives of Salt Lake City can do these 3 things, why can't every franchise do these 3 things? And then basically every franchise would be super successful. And that's not happening. So let me help you guys out. Andy Cohen, hi, call me. I can help you. Cool. There are 3, count with me, 3 things that you have to have the perfect housewife franchise, okay? You have to have, number 1, real, authentic relationships with the cast, okay? They cannot be people that you just met off the street. And I'm talking about like the entire cast, okay? I don't care if half the group knows somebody and half the group knows somebody. That's okay. I'm okay with that part. But when we are basically piecemealing a cast together of women that don't even fucking know each other, and we just hope that they all get along, it doesn't work, okay? It might work for a millisecond, but it does not work overall. It doesn't work longevity-wise. We need women that actually have spent time together off of camera, that know each other beyond the show, okay? And the examples that I love to give for the best franchises to ever do it when it comes to the friends and family and authentic relationship department, Real Housewives of New York. You guys will learn real quick during this entire conversation. Real Housewives of New York, in my opinion, overall, from start to finish, the OGs, not the new ones, the OG, in my opinion, is one of the best housewife franchises. I think that one is up there. I think Jersey's up there. I think Atlanta's up there. So those are kind of be like my 3 like referencing tools for you guys when we're kind of talking about these franchises. So Real Housewives of New York, they were all organically friends. This group of women already knew each other, already had a history together. If not all of them, the majority of them already had spent time together, already tested together. It was a friend group that came onto the show. Real Housewives of Atlanta, if you guys know the lore about Real Housewives of Atlanta, they were a group of friends that just worked out to be together on a television show, and they already knew each other. They've already had friendships. They already knew each other's kids. They already had a great establishment. And then you look at Real Housewives of New Jersey, where they were all friends, and you add the family element to it, which wasn't really happening on Real Housewife franchises. And New Jersey was really the first one to kind of hone in on the family part. And so because you already have an established friendship, or you already have an established family dynamic, there will always be a storyline. There will always be conversations. There will always be something, because there's always something happening on camera, but we're also adding the part where there's always something happening off camera too. So in the off season, when they're not filming, we can continue to create stories and storylines because we're all spending time together anyway. And the group that does that the best right now, that has an established television program right now, is Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. They already had an organic group of women that were already friends, that already had a history together, that already had background together, and spend time with each other outside of anything that is made, anything that they have to do for the franchise, for the show, essentially. And so that's why they are just so good at that. And why they have been able to have this beautiful longevity is because of these friendships and family dynamics. Next thing, second thing that you have to have, okay, is you have to have a reliable, entertaining, fun, likable narrator on your show, okay? And the narrator doesn't necessarily have to be the most likable person necessarily in general in the world, okay? But we're talking about in our little tiny tube of housewives, okay? We're talking about in our little tiny little petri dish that we're making, okay? And in our little petri dish, the narrator isn't always the most likable person in general in the human world, in normie world. But on the show with the crazies, they are the most likable one. So examples of narrators that I've always enjoyed over the years and that I thought were very, very good is, I think Bethany Frankel was very good at that. I think Lisa Vanderpump is very good at that. I think Candy was very good at that. I think that Heather Gay currently is very good at that. It's basically when they are in their diary rooms, they are either talking complete sense to the audience where they're like, yeah, this is stupid. This doesn't make any sense. Am I right, audience? Like that kind of vibe. They are funny as hell and are saying the most unhinged, crazy, ridiculous, funny things on like intentional. Like they're not like, Lisa Barlow is unintentionally funny. She doesn't realize, I think, how silly she can be. Luann, Sonja, like they're just naturally funny, but they don't know that they're silly and funny and delusional and crazy. Whereas like Bethany knows she's funny. She knows she's putting on a comedy act essentially. When people are talking to her reunions, they're always the one that's kind of like, well, what did you think about that? Well, what did you think about that? They're kind of always the neutral person in the group. Caroline Manzo's another one of those. And then one of my favorites is Garcelle. I think Garcelle is one of the best like franchise narrators ever to be done, because what, in my opinion, I've always thought Garcelle did, and I have no proof of this is just like my little conspiracy theory, is I always thought that Garcelle basically went on Reddit, Google, MySpace, Facebook, Zillow. She did all the research before the season started. And then she would come in and she would kind of fill in the gaps where she thought that either the cast wouldn't talk about certain things or they weren't really pushing a story far enough that they needed to, and the answers weren't getting answered. Like Garcelle, and that's the thing that stinks about a franchise like Beverly Hills, is that they needed someone like Garcelle so bad, because without them, that show is so boring. Right now, Beverly Hills has nothing to offer. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. It just is what it is. Like, they're just a boring franchise right now. And Garcelle was really good about asking questions and filling in gaps. And you think about, like, the Lisa Rinna of it all and the Erica Jane whole situation. A lot of the times, it was her and Sutton, but mostly Garcelle, kind of like asking the right questions, making the right statements, talking to the right women, and kind of piecing it all together. And even the women that didn't necessarily love Garcelle, everybody seemed to flock to her and find a way to always be talking to her, asking for her opinions, going at her. And so, like, it always kind of worked for Garcelle. And what happens is when you're the narrator, in my opinion, you're the one that's kind of needed the most in the franchise, in my opinion. That's just me, okay? And then last but certainly not least, some might say this is the best part about this whole entire thing, is number 3, you need delusion. You need so much of it, okay? Housewives are not meant to be serious 24/7, 365. Some might argue, honestly, they only need to be really that serious for like 5% of the time, and that's really about it. Just to have like a little reality check to kind of bring us back, get a little tear down our eyes, and then we move back on to Crazy Town, okay? But delusion is needed, okay? And Real Housewives of New York, again, my perfect franchise. I am very, very biased, okay? But they were so good as an ensemble of having the more, serious, thoughtful, reality-driven human beings like Bethany, I think, was for the most part. Carol was. Heather was. I think that those were women that are a little bit more grounded overall than some of the other women on the show. But then you have to have a Sonja Morgan. You have to have a Ramona. You gotta have a Dorinda. You gotta have a Luann. Like, these are women that make these franchises what they are. the gifts, the memes, the jokes, the running like comedic timing of these women, like you need that stuff, okay? And Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is doing a really good job with that, where they have Mary, they have Lisa Barlow, they have Meredith, they have a good delusional core that is consistently making the audience laugh, consistently adding to the lore of the show, because you have to have these likable characters. Like, when you think about Dorinda and she's like, you know, I made it nice. You think about Luann, that's like cabaret. I mean, you think about all these women and they add to the lore of the show. They add to the value of the show by having these funny little moments. Atlanta was so good at that. You think about Candy, who's, you know, worldwide. Like, you think about all these different franchises and they have their moment. You know, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Proof, timeline, screenshots, like all that stuff. Those things make your franchise memorable, but they come out of this delusion. They come out of this craziness. You think about Luann, who had that conversation on the phone about the pirate she hooked up with when she fell in the bushes in their little trip. I think it was to Mexico, I think. There's so many turtle time. Like, you talk about a franchise that has so many one-liners up until literally their last stretch of like till the very end. Those women were one-liners left, right, and center. And that's what made them so funny and so good. And the other thing I like about the delusion part that I think a franchise like Beverly Hills is the one franchise that I think needs to have like resuscitation. Like, they're on the struggle bus. But one thing that I miss about Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and what I miss about some of these franchises, is I miss the rich woman delusion. I miss that part. I miss the Kathy Hilton of it all. Kathy Hilton is what I think people think of when they think of a housewife. They think of this rich white woman who has all this money that she doesn't even know what to do with. She doesn't even know how much milk costs, you know, giving very Kim Kardashian, you know, that kind of vibe. I think we're missing that. We had that for a while where I thought I love that part. I love that some of these women were so rich that they didn't even know. Like, I remember watching Beverly Hills at the beginning, and Adrienne Maloof didn't know how to cook a turkey or a chicken, I think it was. And she thought that you were supposed to put soap on it. Like, that's the level of delusion I miss from these franchises. I miss Teresa talking about her boobies every 5 minutes. I miss sprinkle cookies. Like, dumb, funny as hell stuff that you just feel like only women with that amount of money and that amount of status could do these things and get away with it. Like, half the shit Ramona was saying and doing, the average woman could not do or could say, but she's a rich white woman. She can do it all. Like, I miss the days before social media where page 6 was a big deal to these women. If you were on page 6, that was a big, big, big deal. Social media, I will say, I think has ruined a little bit of the Real Housewife franchise, because what I feel like is happening now is that there is this level of overproducing from the actual housewives instead of just participating in like the experiment of housewives. I think a lot of times what's happening is that we get the Lisa Rinna of it, where whether she wants to admit it or not, in my opinion, I have no proof, but in my opinion, I think Lisa Rinna was producing herself and the cast to benefit her. And once we start doing that, we're losing the plot. Like, the housewives, if you're going to be a housewife, listen to me, okay? If you're going to be a housewife, do it for the social experiment. Don't do it because you want to change how people think about you. You want to create your own narrative. You want to create your own storylines. Just enjoy. Like, everybody needs to be like Mary Crosby, who half the time I don't even think she knows she's being filmed and is on a television show. Okay? We need like that level of crazy, because what's happening is now we're starting to see people like Lisa Barlow and Meredith who are starting to overproduce themselves, who are tiptoeing that line. And we started seeing that happen when Lisa Barlow was on the little boat there with the below deck crew there. And she was just like, oh, you guys should be like happy I'm here and in your presence, essentially. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not going to work for housewives. That never works for a housewife. A housewife that thinks that they are better that they are the show, you're always going to fail. Do you know how rare it is for a actual housewife to be so big that they could leave the housewife franchise and do their own thing and still like live their own life? That is very, 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 very rare. And I would say there's maybe a handful of housewives that can say that. And I think Lisa Vanderpump is one of them. Everybody's been wanting Lisa Vanderpump back since she left, okay? And the fact that people still care, that means something. I think Bethenny Frankel is one of the best housewives of all time, whether you like her or not. I'm not a big fan of her anymore to this day in this moment, but I think for reality TV, she literally was gold, literal gold. I think at one time, one of my favorite delusional housewives is Sheree. Sheree is so good at being oblivious to everything. And it's a great balance for people like Candy, who is very thought-provoking. She thinks about a lot of things. She has a good head on her shoulders. She knows where her money is. She knows what she's doing. She's got a lot of common sense. And then you have that juxtaposition at one point with people like Sheree, who couldn't even tell you what month, year, season her freaking yoga line was coming in, her house when that was being built. I mean, those moments are so funny, and we need to get back to that. And I feel like Real Housewives of SLC is doing that for sure. I think they're holding up, that end of the bargain. I think that when you have a group of women, and I think that Real Housewives of New York were really good about this, and I feel like SLC was doing this, and I'm a little nervous that they're kind of starting to eat away at that, is that I always felt like Real Housewives of New York, they were really good. Even Bethenny, who I think was at sometimes holding this ship down, okay? But I think overall, everyone in that cast knew their part. They knew what part of the puzzle piece they were, and they knew that if one puzzle piece was gone, the whole thing wouldn't work. They knew that. They knew their core group, and they knew if they stuck with that core group and they kept pushing it along, they could keep kind of milking that tooth, if you know what I'm saying. And SLC, I feel like they've kind of mastered that. They've kind of realized, listen, we might not all like each other. We might not all always get along, but we know our place, and we know that we all need each other. Whether we love Brittany or not, she's needed for the group. Bronwyn's needed. Angie's needed. Mary's needed. They're all needed for the group overall. And I do get a little nervous when we see people like Lisa Barlow having a little chirp session saying that she's better than everybody. That gets me nervous because it's an ensemble cast. It is rare that you get like Kim and Candy and Bethenny who get their own shows. That is very rare. And that they're successful, okay? Not only do they get their own shows, but they're successful franchises all on their own. That's very, very rare. And Lisa Barlow needs to tread lightly because, no offense, her husband is not entertaining enough, and her boys, I don't think, want anything to do with being on reality TV. So, girl, be careful. I'm just saying, be careful. All right, that's it for me. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this inspires you. I hope this maybe makes you think of who your favorite housewives are. And maybe it makes you think about who your favorite delusional housewife is, who your favorite narrator is, who your favorite friends of, family members are on these shows. But I just love Real Housewives, okay? I love it so much. I find it so precious. And I also find it very easy to make a good housewife franchise, but for some reason they just don't want to. So here's the thing. Real Housewives of Rhode Island, producers, showrunners, the cast itself, listen to what I just said, and I promise you, you're gonna be just fine, baby. You're gonna be just fine, baby. All right, I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.